Chris, I just came from a site audit. We're going to be going to the same site again to do
2 weeks, right?
Next week.
Next week?
Next week, Thursday and Friday.
Oh, it is, yeah.
So the issue is a little bit of everything, but it really is mostly coordinator overwork and coordinator not used to being a site director. You know who this is, but we can't mention.
They do, but they have her running it as a site director?
Well, the job description is coordinator. The problem is no one who actually owns the site has ever been a coordinator. And so they're like, well, why is this person not doing their job? We have 60 subjects screened. And there's 3 other studies. She has all these assistants. You know, and this coordinator is a perfectionist. So what's going on, what my assessment tells me after spending a day with this person, is this person's a perfectionist, and this is going to be another rant podcast later. You and I can do another podcast today.
Oh, okay.
Perfectionist, usually not a good thing if you're overwhelmed. If you have nothing to do, it's great.
Or limited.
Yes, if you're overwhelmed, what happens with this, at least with this person, and most perfectionists I know, is they end up doing nothing because they have 0 completed products. In this case, a product is a completed source document and a completed EDC. Because they're holding out until everything's perfect and they have all the answers, the monitor actually thinks they're not doing anything. And it would appear so on surface.
Yeah.
And when I went to the site, this coordinator is crying. Like once a week she cries at the office.
Literally?
Yes.
Huh.
She almost cried when I was there. And she's there till midnight. She goes on the weekends. Things are not done. Right? So this is workload. They have like 60 subjects enrolled. And unfortunately for this person...
So you said she has assistants. How many assistants does she have?
She has one to enter EDC. Okay. She's responsible for the queries. She has 2 other assistants that could actually see the patients, draw blood, do vitals, process the labs.
Who's responsible for gathering data? Is this coordinator? This one we're speaking of?
For any non-vital sign and any lab and any non-assessments that a doctor or nurse is doing, the coordinator is responsible for putting everything together on the source.
Okay, but
and another thing is she's not good at delegating because she came from an environment where she was told what to do.
Okay. And
now she's put in an environment where she has to rely on other people.
So how is it that much of the source is incomplete?
Because this person is a perfectionist and doesn't want to put out incomplete source documents.
But the data is gathered at the visit, right?
So a lot of it is like medical history, medical records, adverse events, call logs. Sometimes with a call log you can't make a connection with the patient, but you've got to keep trying.
So for example, in the adverse events, there's an adverse event log that's not complete. The adverse event's mentioned in the source somewhere, but the adverse event log isn't completed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm following.
So just to give you all some context, and by the way, this is not just this site. This is going to be every site that's going to deal with this problem this year. If you've got tons of studies going on, which most of the research clinics are going to. So clinical trials are on the rise. In recent years, there has been a huge shift in the industry. Salaries are going up. This person makes good money compared to what she used to make. It's almost doubled.
So she's happy with money, just not the workload.
Yeah.
Okay.
More job opportunities. The result is employee retention is dropping because the market is competitive and employees leave one company for another. This person never said she's going to leave. She's actually going to stick with it.
Yeah, I would assume like the employers, the people.
Yeah, and she wants to make a career out of this. So she's young, so she knows that she needs to put in some blood, sweat, and tears into it. And she's literally putting in tears and sweat. I don't know about blood.
Maybe she got a paper cut.
Yeah, it could be. It's hazardous job, right? Paper cuts are running amok. So, but the problem with another site going through the same situation would be, hey, this coordinator is going to be like, you know what, screw this, I'm out of here. These other guys are recruiting me, I'm going to go work with them.
I'll make a little less money, but I'll be a lot happier.
Or make more money.
Well, yeah, that's also a possibility.
And maybe they just think they're going to be happier. The grass is always greener.
And it truly is.
But guess what? To that employer that lost a good coordinator, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that they lost a coordinator. So, obviously, the first thing this employer needs to do, because they're making good money, the problem is the data's not getting entered in the EDC, so they haven't really been paid. So the first thing we did was make sure that she entered everything in the EDC. That stops the bleeding. The next thing you got to do is figure out, and one of our business partners, Jim, this old rich dude who owns hospitals, he says you got to put all your activities in a quadrant. He says you got to put in the what's urgent and important, what's non-urgent and important, what's urgent and not important, and what's non-urgent and non-important.
How would something be urgent but not important?
Urgent but not important. Something that a monitor is requesting. They have a database lock. Need a query done. That's urgent, not important for you. You already got paid. You may have the opportunity cost of missing out.
It is important
just play with me with this quadrant.
No, I understand, but it's urgent. It's important on their side. Urgent and important on their side.
Yes. The problem is this person, and I know many people listening and watching, they don't have any system. There's no quadrant. Forget about all four of those. Just they're mixing up what's not important with what is important.
Oh, sure.
And they'd rather do the non-important stuff because they have no semblance of. I mean, I was watching this person work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she was starting to do something that was urgent and important because I told her, hey, you don't do anything else except this right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take like 3 hours to do this.
Right.
Well, guess what? She would go through the source, and then she would find a mistake, and she would say, oh shoot, I did this same mistake for these other people. And then she started moving to that.
Now she's off on a tangent.
Yes. And I said, no, don't do that. Put it aside. You're going to do that later. But that's not urgent and important.
Maybe make a mental note or even a note on paper.
Yes.
To remind yourself, but continue with what was important and urgent.
Yes. And that was still important, but it was not urgent because the monitor was only requesting
this 3 hour.
This other one first.
Right.
The monitor is going to request that other stuff later. That will become urgent. But it's not urgent on a Saturday night.
Right, it's not urgent.
That's going to be urgent on a Tuesday night.
Right.
And right now, you got to stop the bleeding. So, I know sites are going through this right now. And as an employer, how do you assess workload? So that's the next slide. Now, it's tough to assess a coordinator's workload as a site director or a site owner if you've never been a coordinator.
Right.
One of the benefits we have,
right.
The advantages we have,
both have been.
We've both been coordinators. I've never asked anyone to do anything I haven't done before, which is not the case at a lot of these sites.
Sure.
Which was not the case at this site.
Mm-hmm.
The site director, good person, like really wants to make it work, doesn't understand. That's why they had me go in.
Sure.
Right? So it was a mixture of being overworked, that's obvious. Everyone's going to be overworked in this environment. But also not delegating. And having someone who's never been in charge of delegating put into a position, and on top of it is a perfectionist. So there's a lot of the, well, I can do it better type thing going on too.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, look, rather than putting out something that's perfect, which by the way it's never going to be, put out something that's 75% perfect.
Or
at least the site's going to get paid.
I would probably take a little different approach there.
Yeah, tell them what you would do.
Something that's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Something that's acceptable. Of course,
acceptable
there's still going to be
having data entered.
Right. Something that's acceptable. Your ultimate goal here is, in this situation, I would think, would be you don't want any massive problems, right? You don't want any. You don't want the monitor to come in and say, well, I suspect fraud because this, right? Or or you're not following the protocol because of this, right? You don't want any of that, right? So again, you're important and urgent. Those things need to be handled, right?
Yes.
Everything else, minor issues with source in terms of, maybe, for example, the time was supposed to be written in 24-hour format and it was written in 12-hour format. Let's not worry about that crap, right?
Yes.
Those are simple queries that can be fixed later,
Yeah.
right? We want acceptable data now, right? And that would be acceptable. Minor queries, fine, right, in this situation.
Right.
So you just want acceptable. What you're going for? You're going for a C, B minus at this point.
Yeah, especially if there is no difference between an A plus and an F as far as like it's binary. You either get paid or you're not getting paid for that visit.
Well, there's one other caveat there, right? In
Yeah.
the sense that you can lose the study.
You can.
Right.
They're actually on a hold.
Right. So you got to be acceptable. You have to be at least acceptable, right?
Well,
you might lose the study on a D.
This person had all the data in her head and was not putting it on paper. She wasn't sure, and people didn't complete what they said they were going to do. And rather than her taking the initiative and going to make sure that she gets that info, she's just waiting.
Okay.
Because she's got 1,000 fires to put out. So you need somebody like as a site director who knows business, knows what it means to be a coordinator, to literally, in cases like this, spell out like the top 10 things that are most important right now, which is what I ended up doing at the end of the day. I said, here's the 10 things you need to do before Wednesday to stop the bleeding. Maintain these things because it's an active study. Patients keep coming in. These same issues are going to keep popping up. Maintain it. And once you're caught up, don't ever get to that situation again. Start delegating. Take charge. Go tell people what to do. If they don't pay attention to you or they don't listen to you, it means they don't respect you. Go bother them every 10 minutes until they do.
Or maybe get somebody new in there.
Which is what we're also helping them with. Yeah, so there's a lot going, and not surprisingly, this is a startup research clinic. But they're doing good.
Most everybody's researching that.
What startup clinic do you know that has 5 studies in a saturated market? They're enrolling in all of them. In one of them, they have 60 subjects screened.
And they're one of the top enrollers.
Yeah. And on top of it, now they're getting a sponsor audit.
And that's where we come in.
That's where they call Dan and Chris. Hey, come help us out. We're kind of screwed right now.
Yep.
Well, we will, but the root of the problem is being overworked and site director not understanding what it takes to be a coordinator. Site owner and site director.
Well, I thought you said this coordinator is kind of a site director as well.
No. The coordinator is not a site director, but she's expected to act like a site director.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Right.
And she doesn't know how to do that because she's never done that.
And the site owner has no perspective on anything, really, when it comes to research.
Site director learning the hard way. And
site owner, right?
Yeah.
Site owner / site director?
Yes. The owner. This person's a coordinator.
Right.
But is expected to act like a owner.
Right. Because the owner doesn't know anything.
Yeah. Which is fine, but she does need help. You're right. I'm getting comments, this person needs help. Yep, and we're on it. We already have one of our people that we know that are going to be interviewing there. But we got to stop the bleeding first, right? The help's going to come, but we got to stop the bleeding. So, how to retain employees? Chris Sauber, are any of our employees listening? We got to talk quieter here. They're in the other room.
Yeah, right.
How do we retain them?
Well, there's a number of ways to retain employees.
Well,
right?
Go ahead. Before I get to the slides, you give them the Chris Sauber spiel.
So let's take banking, for example, right? They're not typically high-paying positions, right? So how do they make their employees feel appreciated? To give them fancy titles, right? No, you can't really do that in research. I mean, I guess you can.
You can.
Right?
You can give titles.
Because
that can translate directly into, like, a lot of these coordinators want to be CRAs.
Sure. So one way to appease your staff is what works for them, right? Maybe we're in a situation we can't afford to pay them much more, I mean, 'cause pay obviously is one way to show that your staff, you're appreciative of their work, right?
That's on the slides, but continue.
So pay is one option. Another is title, right? If that would appease your staff member, then provide them with a title that they would cherish, right?
Yeah.
So those two are typical. I would say there's a third as well, though, and that is by simply telling your employee that you appreciate them and the work they do, as well as what can you do to make their life a little easier.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I would say those three are typical.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know.
There's nothing worse than when, as an employee, and I've never been one, so maybe I'm just talking out of my rear end. I wish we can, like, curse on these webinars. I guess we can, but we got to keep it professional. This is a webinar, not a podcast.
Right.
That's coming later. The cursing is coming later. Okay?
During the podcast.
Yeah. So there's nothing worse, in my opinion, when you're an employee, when you're asked to do something that your employer has never done, doesn't know what that entails, and just keeps giving you more, and then thinks that you're not doing anything when you actually are.
Well,
right? Like that could be very frustrating, and it could be a huge reason why people leave their current workplace to go somewhere else, which may not be better, but again, to that employer, it doesn't matter because you're going to lose somebody. They're not going to come back to you.
Sure. So,
right?
A previous clinic that you had owned and sold to an individual.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention any names here.
South Coast Clinical Trials.
Right. So there's a particular individual there that you do not want to emulate, right, as a site owner. You want to do everything the opposite of what that person does,
yes.
right? So what things would you say that person did that employees did not care for?
You know, he actually did a lot of things correct. He just had very little empathy for others. But one of the things he was able to do very well was delegate and have a clear structure of who's doing what.
So why do the employees not like him?
He's got a bad attitude, and he's horrible to deal with.
Okay, how so, though? When an employer perspective, what specifically, as an employer, did he do? Was it the way he treated the people?
The way he treated...
like, was he disrespectful? You know, you're an idiot, go do this, and you can't do it right, you're a moron.
Without using those words, yes.
Okay.
Yes, he definitely gave that vibe off. He did not actually overwork people, though.
Okay.
And he did understand what it takes to be a coordinator. So certain employees could thrive in that environment for a short period of time, but they would leave for other reasons, primarily because you don't want to work with someone that you don't like. And this person's very difficult. He's not likable at all.
So maybe that's something also you can do as an employer, be likable.
Be likable. This clinic that I just came from has an extremely likable boss. So it's a different issue. He has no understanding of what it takes to be a coordinator. Learning the hard way. So it's a very different scenario than the other case, right? But yeah, retention, it could be a lot has to go right for you to keep your employees happy. You could be a nice person and lose staff. You could be a horrible person and keep staff. There's a lot of variables, right? But the theme is being overworked, pay, appreciated, and your employer to have some empathy for what you're doing, what you have to do.
If the employee does not dread going to work, right, I think you've already won half the battle, right? So I think likable is a big component.
It is a big component.
Because I know if I were going to work and I absolutely could not stand my employer,
but I think likable,
I would dread going to work.
Yeah, and that's one thing we have going for us, right?
Sure.
So here's how to retain employees, okay? Pay on the north end of fair. Do you agree with that? Figure out what's fair. Pay on the north end of fair.
Okay, so I think if you're doing everything else, right? I think fair is reasonable.
Fair.
I don't think you need to pay on the north end of fair, if everything else is done right.
So the north end of fair just prevents people from jumping ship.
Right. It gives you an extra little added cushion.
Yeah.
If you're doing everything else right, you have more cushion.
Yeah. So find the median salary in your market and add a small premium on it. Now what we do, we haven't done that unless we really wanted to keep the person, and it was a really good market. What we have done though, and it does work well, is add on incentives.
Sure.
So we have one coordinator now at one of our other sites.
Now, before you mention this, I'm just going to add one little bit of context.
Yeah, let them know.
Some sponsors and CROs frown on this practice.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, explain. Because, okay, I'm not surprised. I haven't heard of that.
They do, though.
I'm sure some IRBs, and there's
No,
so many,
I've seen this in feasibility questionnaires.
Interesting.
Do you pay your...
Okay, expand on that. Expand.
Well, you got to finish what you were going to say.
No, this is more interesting.
So I've seen in a few feasibility questionnaires where it asks, do you pay your employee any type of incentive? Typically it's phrased in a way in regards to screening, right? Like if so many are screened,
yeah.
Do you pay a bonus for screening, right? But this could be construed to fit that definition, what we do, right? So what we do is we give a percentage of the profit. We profit share.
Profit share. That's on the slide.
Right, we profit share. But you could construe that into, well, aren't you kind of paying for so many patients held in this trial? You
can argue that that's an incentive, or you can argue that that's not an incentive. Because we're not giving you an incentive to screen more. We're only giving you an incentive to keep retention numbers up.
Right, but it's asked that way too.
And to get people randomized.
Do you pay your employers, right, your coordinators specifically, I've seen the question, for screening and retaining patients? Profit sharing kind of does that, right?
So you can answer that any way you want, because
I always say no.
You say no?
Yeah.
What a liar.
No, not necessarily, because you can argue, no, we're not. I mean, if they can cut costs, there's all kinds of ways that you can increase profit.
I'm with you on that. I would say no too. And then there's nothing stopping you from mid-study saying, hey, we're going to give you profit sharing.
What I'm saying is at a site selection visit, if you're asked this question, because oftentimes they ask questions off the feasibility questionnaires, I would not say that your employers are participating in profit sharing. Yeah,
you're opening a can of worms.
Exactly.
Which to any business owner, they want to give incentives. Well, any good business owner wants to give incentives. So that's a little, I wonder why they asked that question. To reduce fraud, or?
I think that's part. I think that's part and part.
Well, that makes sense.
I think it's also...
But that's a different issue, though. I mean, fraud is different from recruitment.
It doesn't matter. You're still, I think, opening a can of worms. If you happen to mention, yes, we offer incentives to employees.
So you should just say we pay on the north end of fair.
Yeah. Sure.
No incentive.
I think it's better if you pay fair and then offer an incentive, personally.
So isn't being an owner an incentive?
You would think.
And what if the owner is a coordinator? You have to rat yourself out?
You would think, correct?
I own 25% of the company, so I have an incentive. Yes.
There's so many things in life that are contradictory, Dan. I don't know where to even start with that.
Yeah, I've never seen... yes, it would be better to just say no. We're getting questions, comments.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be better to just say no, no explanation? Yes.
Yeah, and that's what we do.
Yes. However, I disagree with the premise of that question. I think it's ridiculous.
I do too, honestly.
When did you see any of those this year? That must have been in the low study supply time.
I haven't really filled out a whole lot of feasibility questionnaires of late, but I would say...
What? Why? Should I get nervous here?
No, I only fill out ones that are very important to our site.
Okay, you've got helpers for the other stuff.
Yeah,
you're fancy.
The other stuff I'm not too concerned about.
You got fancy.
Yeah, right. But I think the last time was, probably about a year ago.
Okay, so that's profit sharing. Man, we're only on slide 3. There's only 7. Know when to hire help. We just talked about this.
Mhm.
So sites can get busier and coordinators become overworked. Look at the image.
Yeah, drowning in paperwork.
Sites can get busier and coordinators become overworked. Someone is asking, what type of workload does the employee face as it is related to retention? So, we're going to get there. Sites can get busier and coordinators become overworked. That's obvious, right? Work will accumulate because coordinators become unable to deal with monitors and follow-up items while still conducting study visits. Okay? So, this is what happened to this person. Work accumulates because coordinators become unable to deal with monitors and follow-up items while increasing study visits. What I told the site owner to do was, and they already did it, but it was too little too late. Stop the screening, catch up on all your action items. Matter of fact, any site, if you take away anything from this, take away the fact that if you start noticing, and we're going to talk about signs being overworked, subtle signs. That's in the next slide. I know because I've looked at the slide this time.
Well, we know a few one organization in particular I know of. Again, I'm not going to mention any names.
Yes,
hopefully
please
you know
don't.
what I'm talking about.
Unless they're our own organization.
Right. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But what they do, they have their coordinators, which I don't necessarily agree with, but if you're at a complete loss, you're very much research naive as a site owner, you may want to instill this at least for a little while. You'll have a better gauge on what's going on. What they do is they have their coordinators fill out a log on every activity that they do and the time they do it. So
I don't know who this is.
yeah, you do. So, like, for example, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., I can enter data on EDC. From 2 to 3:30, I met with employee number 3. Or
keep a log.
Right.
So in addition to I still don't know who this is, but in addition to all these logs you got to keep as a coordinator anyways.
Right.
Now you want an extra log?
That's what I'm saying.
So I would have left this place.
I don't agree with this, right? But what I'm saying is it could be a benefit to a research naive site, right?
This person's commenting, would that take away time from getting other work done?
It absolutely would. This is why I disagree with it. But if you are lost as a site owner, right, and have no idea what your employee is doing, right, this could lend a little bit of data to your analysis of the situation. I'm just saying, if you're at a complete loss, I completely disagree with doing this. I would not implement this. I think it's just going to
upset your
employees. Yes, you do. You do. Harold.
Okay. No. Okay. Just tell me city.
I don't. I always forget the name of their company. But they're big.
Give me a state.
No, just give me your name.
Okay, write it down. Give me more context. Oh, yeah.
They do that.
Oh, she's crazy.
Yeah, but they do that.
Okay.
Very large and successful corporations.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
How do you know?
I was told.
Oh.
At a IMV from one of the coordinators.
Well, the only way they can get away with that is paying on the very north end of fair, which they probably do.
Yeah, I think they do actually, right? We know a couple of their employees.
That site does well.
But nonetheless, that's what they do, and they're not research naive.
Not at all.
So, but again, I think that's a real hassle.
Mm-hmm.
You would rather your employees utilizing their time better than filling out stupid laws.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't know what's going on, right, that's a good way to gauge, I think, what your employees are spending their time on.
Yes. What I was saying was, if you don't take away anything else from this, take away this one thing. If you are running a site and you're noticing some of the signs we're going to get into, slowing down, staff becoming overwhelmed, before you lose your coordinator or end up getting audited or end up losing the study, stop screening.
Sure, I agree.
Stop the screening, stop the bleeding, This site that I visited did that, but it was too late. They only stopped the screening after they knew they were going to get audited.
Right.
They're getting a sponsor audit because they're probably the top enroller.
Yep.
And they have all these issues. And some of the primary endpoints, most important endpoints, are not getting entered in the data.
So another just
go ahead. Have a
tangent. You don't want that kind of view.
Yeah.
So a tangent, what you had said there was really what you need to do as a site owner is have an understanding of what your coordinators are doing, right? And what's the better way to do that than actually be a coordinator?
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're completely research naive and you're dependent upon your coordinators, you also kind of want a backup, right? So it's good to be a backup coordinator as a site owner, right?
So this person couldn't?
Because they have no idea. Right?
No. This person couldn't do that because the owner is blinded staff.
Okay.
It adds further complexity.
Sure.
This is a mess.
Sure.
You'll see.
But in a typical study, a site owner could act as the backup coordinator.
Of course, you can't expect any employee to care more about your business than you should.
Absolutely.
And they shouldn't.
So if you're completely naive to research, I would strongly recommend we offer a class, the CRA Academy.
I like the plug. Continue, Chris Sauber.
More than happy to teach you how to be a coordinator. Or you can just get in there, have your current coordinator teach you how to do it as well.
What's the class? What?
CRA Academy.
TheCRAacademy.com.
Anyhow, so you should have an understanding as well. You should act as a coordinator at some point in time, I would hope, and I would think you would want to as a site owner. Just to have a better understanding of exactly what it is your employees are going through.
And this particular site is not like the owners, thinks that they're above that, but they're a blinded staff and they're respecting the protocol.
Sure.
Another thing is they have other sites, so they can't actually physically be present there. Basically, they need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Slow it way down. If you're brand new, you shouldn't have 3 clinics. And enroll 60 patients at each of those.
In each study.
Right? Let's be reasonable.
Sure.
Have 1 clinic.
But come on. Human nature breeds.
Of course. Strike while the iron's hot. I get it. Sure. I would do it too.
But you have a little better idea, a little better handle on what can be done.
There's consequences to everything.
Sure.
This is one of them. Now, I'd rather deal with these kind of problems than we can't get patients and we can't get studies. I'd rather deal with we got to figure out how our employees can handle all this work.
I agree with you.
But I know what you're about to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead and say it.
So if you do a bad job on a trial, you may not be getting another trial from that sponsor or CRO.
Uh-oh.
So there's a catch to that as well.
That's right.
So you have to be careful. You have to balance things.
Signs. Here's where we're getting to the meat and the juicy part of this webinar. How to determine a coordinator's workload. There probably should be books written on this. CROs can take note too. Because guess what? We've been focusing on sites.
They do ask.
But you know who the most overworked clinical researchers of all are, including sites? CRAs.
Probably, yeah.
CROs have a bigger employee retention problem than sites.
And it would depend on the site. I mean, I'm sure there's some sites where their coordinators are, for example, you're a CRA at a site where the coordinator, we did an audit there. Coordinator is very much overworked. He's the only coordinator.
And talk about incentives.
Yeah,
the coordinator has plenty of incentives.
Yeah, he's paid quite well.
Yes.
But he's very much overworked. He's there 70 hours a week.
Yes.
So he's worked like a CRA, maybe worse than a CRA.
No, because he doesn't travel.
Sure, but he still works, I'm sure, the same amount of hours.
Yeah, but going in an airport every day is pretty damn stressful.
No, I agree. Wouldn't want that lifestyle.
Right. So this is good for the CROs listening. And if you are a CRO or a pharma company and you want us to assess your company culture, Chris and I are company culture experts and workload assessing experts.
We're just assigning titles as we go.
Yeah. Bring us on for your project. Okay, so here's some things to consider for a coordinator's workload. the complexity of the study as they're assigned to, right? So this study I visited, complex, like 200-page protocol. Sometimes they're like under 100.
Yeah, I would say on average they're 100.
This was 200.
Yeah, double.
On top of that, without giving too much detail, this is a OBGYN study. You know what? So get this. This study is a mess, okay? They use elements of remote monitoring. What does that mean? It means that the coordinator has to scan documents as well. Matter of fact, on the Saturday when I was telling this person only focus on this stuff, it's because the monitor sent out an email, Monday I need these things scanned, Tuesday I need these things scanned, Wednesday I need these scanned, Thursday I need these scanned. Not only were the Monday ones not complete, she had to scan them. And then she wanted to jump to Thursday stuff. And I was like, no, you need to focus on Monday stuff. Worry about Thursday stuff Wednesday, if you can. Because at this rate, you're not going to get to Thursday stuff until about Wednesday. Right? Remote monitoring. Side note here, sidebar. You know how they do in courtrooms? Let's have a sidebar. A lot of remote monitoring studies are going to require a lot of your coordinator's time or an assistant's time.
Yeah, you'd want to use whoever's entering EDC.
Yeah, but start negotiating that in your budget.
Oh, absolutely.
The remote monitoring fee. That scanning took forever. I was there.
Oh, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
You don't want to pay someone $30 an hour to scan. You want to pay someone $12 an hour to scan.
But negotiate for an hour.
Negotiate. And this person wasn't delegating. Because she said if I give it to them and I move on and they don't do it, I'm going to forget. It's easier for me to just do it. Problem. Common problem. Very common. Right? So we can't tell you what study it is. Stay away. Okay? But it gets better. All right? So not only is that, but this study involves pregnant women, 60 subjects. When pregnant women give birth, which most of them do, the number of subjects doubles. Because then you have to follow the baby and have separate logs for the baby.
Baby and mother now are a patient.
This study was a mess. Study is a mess, absolute mess. The budget is nowhere near where it should be. And that's another sidebar for you guys and gals. We not only get you studies, we'll negotiate your budget for you, and we know how to look at a protocol and dissect a lot of these things that are time-consuming and that sponsors are not going to tell you because they want to save money.
Sure. It's a business. They want to pay as little as possible to gather their data.
So when you're getting paid per subject, but the subjects give birth and now you have 2 subjects and they're only paying you for 1, kind of a problem.
Yeah, a little bit.
So in reality, this person had like 120 subjects.
Wow.
You'll see when we go.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a mess. So the complexity of the studies is definitely complex. One of the most complex I've seen. The frequency of study visits. That's one of the things where this study was actually okay with. There wasn't that many visits, but everything just compounds, and everything's time sensitive because everything depends on that pregnancy. On the birth. All right, so guess what? People give birth on Christmas, Thanksgiving, and all the holidays that you want to take off.
Sure.
People give birth. Go figure.
And is this like an SAE? You have to enter that data immediately on the birth? So
the SAE is not the birth is not a SAE.
No, I understand, but it's like an SAE in which they expect the data within 24 hours?
Yeah. Well, they said 72 hours.
Oh, okay.
I looked at the contract. I didn't see the full numbers, but I saw like some of it, and it was like, you guys way under negotiated. And they lost all their leverage of renegotiating.
Yeah, because now they're on a hold.
They're on a screening hold.
Right, they look bad.
They look bad. So now they got to wait for this audit, cross their fingers, and hope everything goes okay. That's why we're going.
Right, prepare for it.
And then maybe, I think enrollment's over, so they kind of lost their leverage as it is. Enrollment's over for the entire study.
It's close.
But they're wanting to do well to get the next study coming up.
So,
But this time they're going to have to think very carefully about how they negotiate.
So if they're one of the top enrollers, they do have some leverage there. I mean, so long as the data is acceptable, again, if it's a grade C, I think they have a good shot at getting the next study.
Mm-hmm.
Because they obviously can enroll, right?
Yep.
And that's the key component to any trial. If your data is just acceptable, it's not excellent, it's not perfect, it's just acceptable, but you're a crazy enrolling site, they're going to come back to you time and again.
Mm-hmm.
But your data has to be acceptable.
Yeah, and this one's not. But
Right.
after the day that I left, it's starting to get a little more acceptable. So little by little. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Sure.
Matter of fact, I'm supposed to follow up with this coordinator once a day. See how progress is going. I did yesterday, I need to do it today too.
Yeah.
And the coordinator actually said thanks for the pep talk. I feel a lot better now, and I feel like I have a plan. Just a matter of following up with it. Okay. Thank you. The clapping feature works. Okay. High, low enrollment for each study, obviously. You know what else this person said that was disturbing, but it's just reality? This person said, I have another monitor coming Monday. But guess what? That stuff's for a different study. None of their action items are going to get done.
Wow.
Because I can't even finish this, what I'm currently working on.
That's going to be one of the monitors.
Well, they didn't enroll many in that one, so.
Still going to be upset.
Yeah. But nobody talks about these things. Like all these people that do these webinars, this is nonsense. They talk in theories.
Sure.
Because they're either so far removed from that, like the trenches, or they haven't done it at all. They just have opinions. Right?
Speaking from their ivory tower window.
Yeah, and then they have all these conferences, and they charge you like thousands of dollars to get in, and they talk about things like risk-based monitoring, when in reality, you've got coordinators drowning in paperwork, ignoring action items from other studies.
And harming your reputation on getting further trials.
And then sponsors wonder why clinical trials are so costly and why they're delayed.
Yeah.
And like 90% of trials fail. 90% of drugs don't even make it past clinical trials. Anyways, that's a rant for another day. Maybe for our podcast. If shameless plug, go to Random Musings of the Clinical Trials Guru on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, and subscribe, and leave a review. Anywhere from 1 to 5 stars, they allow you.
Oh, thanks.
Even if it's 1, just leave something. Okay, next. Do some basic math. I like how this person who created the slides trying to tell me something. I feel like I'm reading, this is our employee. Do some basic math. So for every subject visit, add up the approximate amount of time that will need to be dedicated. Roughly 1 hour for getting the patient through the visit. Now that varies on studies, but let's keep it ballpark.
Yeah, well, if you're doing a schizophrenia trial, more like 3 to 4 hours, but
right.
Depending on the number of assessments.
Figure it out. 3 hours to complete source docs, request records, assess AEs, enter data, maintain regulatory documents. For each subject visit, if it's 1 hour, you have like 3 hours of paperwork following it. That's not a good ratio.
I would say a good general rule in my mind, just without reading your slide there, I would say for every hour, I'm not going to read it, I'm talking. Dan's flashing the slide in front of me.
I can't wait till we get the webcam, what the Wi-Fi can handle, our webcam and the slides, because people are going to see what we're doing during the webinar.
Sure. Anyhow, so I would say a good general rule in my mind, and you tell me if you disagree with this, Dan.
Okay.
So I would say for every hour of subjects on site, I would expect the coordinator to have 3 hours of work. Now, the work would be completing the source documents, entering the data in EDC, answering emails, taking care of regulatory, everything.
Yeah.
I would say for every 1 hour of subjects on site, 3 hours of additional work for the coordinator.
And scheduling the patient.
Handling everything.
And something simple like scheduling the patient, like, hey, you got to come in tomorrow, patient Jake. And Jake tells you, no, I can't make it tomorrow. Let me get back to you on when I can come.
Right.
Now you're doing other stuff. Patient Jake hopefully calls you back in an hour. and says, I can do Wednesday. Then you pencil them in for Wednesday. Then they call you 3 hours later and say, actually, I can't come Wednesday. So these kind of things,
absolutely.
right?
And
Delegation.
There's a lot of email.
Have an assistant. You don't want to pay a coordinator $60,000 a year to do what a receptionist can do.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Do you agree?
I do agree. That's why I was even going to say the ratio may even be higher than that. If for 1 hour of patients on site, there's an additional maybe 4 hours of work. It's somewhere in that realm, though, 3 to 4 hours of work for every 1 hour of patients on site.
Now, I like to put a lot of the responsibility on the owners because I think that they should take more than their fair share of responsibility as a business owner. Call me crazy, but that's how I'm thinking. But some of the responsibility should go down to the coordinators too. If you've been given resources to use, like assistants, like people you can delegate things to, it's really up to you to find a way to make it work. Now, if you don't feel like doing it, then you are going to have more work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
That's a little bit of the case here as well. It's not all on the employer.
Provided enough assistance, or at least some assistance.
Yeah.
To help.
Now, what I would do differently if I were the employer is kind of like force that. No, you're going to delegate. I'm going to sit here with you and delegate until you get the hang of it. It's the only way to make it work, right? Now, they're doing the right thing. They're bringing in somebody else. They brought in consultants like us to help out. They have another QA, a former monitor, that does the QA. This is why our audit's not going to be as difficult as I thought. They have a former monitor, almost said the sponsor. Former monitor.
You said the first letter.
Yeah, who cares?
Gives it away.
Let's forget of what I just said, Chris. Everyone forget. You ever see Men in Black where they like erase your memory?
Yeah.
Let's go back there and do that.
You have a few attendees on the meeting. You might need to do that.
It's only going on YouTube and everywhere. So they have someone that comes in on the weekends to do QA, a former monitor that's semi-retired.
Right.
And she actually is pretty helpful. Now, one of the things this person does is they're monitors that have never worked at a site. They're very good at pointing out problems, and they're not very good at finding solutions.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you and I come in.
Sure.
And I already went in and got a couple things like lined up for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the QA, if you hire like QA people, that's great, but just keep in mind, they're going to be telling you problems. They may not tell you solutions, right?
Sure.
Like those McKinsey consultants that charge $300 an hour.
Right.
They spend like a month figuring out an organization's problems. They make a nice PowerPoint presentation to the owners and the execs. Here's all the problems we found. It takes about an hour to go through all these slides. And then the execs are like, okay, so what do we do about it? And the McKinsey consultant says, oh, no. I mean, we don't know what you're going to do about it.
You didn't pay us for that.
Yeah, we're just telling you the problems. Good luck.
You paid us to point out the problems.
So how good is that, really?
Right.
I mean, it's like half the battle, maybe.
Yep.
And I'm sure if you ask your coordinators, you can figure out what the problems are with them. Okay. Basic math. Also take into account that out of an 8-hour workday, only 6 of those hours are truly productive. This is written by our employee.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk to them.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I know. They got to eat, right?
Well, not only that,
they got to catch up on the latest happenings on The Bachelor around the water cooler.
I think it's a very high expectation that we'll never be met if you expect an employee to work all 40 hours that you pay them for.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen.
And this person's salaried, and so she comes in like, she's literally like lives at the clinic. This was a Saturday night. We were leaving because it was Chinese New Year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, you're going to have a lot of work on Monday because the monitor expects these things by the end of the day on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, no, I'm coming tomorrow.
Huh?
I was like, wow, really?
Right.
It's Sunday. And she said, in the 4 months I've been here, I've only had like 2 Sundays to myself.
Wow. That's brutal.
It's not like this person's not working.
Sure. Yeah, that's a little brutal. But if she's being paid appropriately, I mean,
she's being paid good.
Sure, that's to be expected then. I would say.
And growing pains, because she's always been in a position where she was told what to do,
mm-hmm.
and now she's in a position where she's expected to come up with solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not used to that.
I would say a good rule of thumb is 75%. 25% of whatever hours your employee comes in, that's how much work you expect done.
Yeah.
If they're coming in for an 8-hour day, 6 hours is fair.
Yeah, even us, like, we're owners, so we run, I don't even know how many companies?
7.
Okay, I mean, like, on a typical day, I'll go to work at 10. But I'll start working, like, since I wake up. Like, I'll check email.
Yeah, I still don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I'll check email.
First thing Dan does when he gets up in the morning is looking at emails and sending out responses, and he's been up for 1 minute.
It's so bad.
I can't do that.
All the self-help books that you'll ever read will say don't look at your phone in the morning. I don't do that. I look at my phone as soon as I wake up. I start answering emails. So I'm working, but then I go make coffee. Then I go watch like a little bit of SportsCenter. I'll eat. I'll get ready. I'll go to work. So I'll get to the office around 10. And then a lot of variables. I have a to-do list, but a lot of variables. Someone calls, a student calls, a client calls, then I call you, then an employee complains about something. So there's a lot of things that go on during the day that are not on my check sheet that I have to make time for, and the videos and all that stuff too, right? Like responding to comments. But let's say we're working like 12 hours a day, right? How much of that time? Because you have about the same amount of hours.
I've actually kept logs.
For yourself?
Yes, just out of curiosity.
Okay, so tell everyone
It's about 75%.
So you come in,
and I'm motivated to be successful and get the work done. Right?
Yeah, because you come
that's
in,
going to bring in more money.
You come in, you do mess around with employees. You guys joke a lot.
No, I wouldn't say a lot, but I probably spend on average a half an hour a day talking to the employees. They're not doing work, I'm not doing work, half an hour a day.
Just talking about Super Bowl commercials or whatever.
Whatever.
Okay. So you as an owner are 75%. So maybe your coordinator you could expect like.
I would be
happy with half of the time that they're actually working.
Yeah.
But if they're salaried,
it depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
It depends. Again, it gets back to your quadrant thing, really.
Yeah.
If there's important and urgent, then you gotta expect that stuff gets done.
Or if you have an audit coming up.
Right. Some days you're gonna expect your employees to put in more effort. I do. Right?
Yeah.
If it's important and urgent, then yes, let's work. Let's get it done. And hopefully you hire the right employees, but they can gauge when it's okay to screw around a little bit more than when it's not. You follow me?
Yeah.
You agree, right?
Yeah. So here's how to know when to hire help. Okay, last slide. Thanks for bearing with it. We're going way over the time, 1:05, but we started late. We started like at 12:15.
Yeah.
Signs of an overworked coordinator. Many unanswered queries. Lack of regulatory binder maintenance. Unfiled documents. I mean, this person's desk, I was like, oh, very nice office, very clean. She said, no, I just cleaned it because I knew you were coming. Usually you can't see the desk, like the surface. And then she started pulling out papers, and I was like, oh, yeah, they were all in the cabinet. Many unfiled documents. Here's one thing you can do before it becomes too late as a site owner. Talk to your CRA. Sometimes you'll get CRAs that are shy, that are not going to actually go find you as the site owner. They're just going to tell the coordinator everything. And the PI when they meet with them. But if the PI is not an owner, he or she may not really care.
Right.
You as the site owner need to take it upon yourself, introduce yourself to the CRA, say my name is Chris Sauber, I run the show here, and I want to know...
Maybe not those words, but yeah.
Whatever you want to say. And I want to know how my staff are doing before it gets too late so that I can fix the issues now.
I've had these conversations a number of times.
Right. But research-naive site owners may not.
I think a good basis, the conversation I could be wrong here, I mean, it's just what I do, but I ask CRAs, comparing us to other sites, where do we stand? Right? Data,
very good.
Data, you want to at least be in the middle, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be on the bottom, which I've heard.
So what do you ask specifically?
Just on the important matrix, right? Entering data, resolving queries, just the overall spectrum of things they look at, right? Where do we stand compared to other sites? Enrollment even, where do we stand, right? Screen failures, where do we stand? just the important matrix, right? What you're going to be gauged on for future trials from the sponsor or CRO. It gives you a good baseline on where you're at and what you need to do to improve, or do you need to improve?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is all about future business too, not just current business.
Yeah, think long term, and rather than going all out on, if you're a new site, on let's strike while the iron's hot. And I know I said there's nothing wrong with doing that, but if you're new, you have to have balance with everything you do.
Sure.
Right? Not just running a clinic, but anything in life. Balance. Only you as the site owner, but here's the good news. You as the site owner, you make the rules. You follow the balance that you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Just hopefully you're considering all aspects so that your business stays successful.
Understand the consequences.
Yep.
And a lot of this is easier said than done.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's easier to talk on a webinar rather than doing it.
Implementation's, well, I can't curse, but...
Save it for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's actually good. Everyone we're going to do a podcast later today. If you're not subscribed, go to Random Musings from the Cloud Guru and subscribe, okay? And normally we'll do a plug here, but we have consulting services, $1,000 a month. We do biz dev, we do QA, we do training, we do budgets and contracts, we do source, SOPs, also Site Owner Academy, Site Owner Academy, Site Owner Academy. And the CRA Academy starting in March. It's good for coordinators too.
Especially if they're a little bit research naive.
Or if you're bringing on help and you want a coordinator to get up to speed quick,
yep.
Enroll them. The timing
Absolutely.
is right. The timing is perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Chris Sauber.
Thank you, Dan Spera.
And let's go finish up stuff in our day job.
Huh? This is just for fun.
This is therapy. Thank you all for attending, and we'll catch you next time. We promise the internet is going to be fantastic. We promise that we won't be 15 minutes late figuring out the Wi-Fi.
I don't know if we can promise that, but it won't be a Wi-Fi problem.
We'll promise. And we'll promise we'll have our webcam on.
So I don't know about that either.
Our bandwidth will be strong enough.
You really want to have the webcam on.
So I've read that it's more engaging when your webcam's on. It's just in the corner, like a little corner. It doesn't get in the way of the slides.
Okay.
It just stays in the corner and it keeps people more engaged.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
So dress nicer next time, man. Wear a 49er beanie.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Or a Raider beanie. That's your team. All right, everyone. Go to the podcast. We'll catch you all later. Adios.